So for this dash cam install in a 2022 Subaru Outback Limited, here's all the parts and pieces that I have. Dash camera, basically a hardwire kit, SD card, some add a circuit or fuse taps, multimeter, fine assortment of trim pry tools, 10mm socket for disconnecting the battery, 8mm socket on a screwdriver for taking down the headliner console or overhead console, some wire strippers and crimpers, glue tape for taping off part of that trim for that overhead console so I don't mess it up, and a headlamp. I'm inside the vehicle, and my idea here is to run the dash cam right underneath and kind of right behind the mirror here, so you won't be able to see it behind the mirror, and hopefully that'll avoid the eyesight areas. I've seen diagrams where there's a little bit of space right in front of that mirror. If not, we'll have to carry it over here to either the left or the right of the eyesight, but we'll try first off here. I think what I'll do is actually mount the camera there and just drive around and test and see if it sets off the eyesight. If not, then I'll try for going there. I'll be able to run the wires through the mirror trim here, and we can take off this this eyesight cover. So I just finished the test drive with the camera mounted right there. And you can see it's a little bit offset just for the power port that goes on that. And this camera actually just comes off. It's got a GPS mount underneath. It slides to the right to come off. And the GPS module attaches to the windshield. So before we start getting too crazy with anything that involves airbags or the electronics, what I'm going to do is disconnect the battery. I'll disconnect the negative, and we should be good to explore anywhere around the airbags. Just be very cautious. You don't want to have the wire in front of the airbags for when they go off. You don't want to impede their function. So following the test drive and confirming that this camera location works just fine with the eyesight, I'm going to pull down this eyesight cover, see if I can run the wires up through here, through this trim piece for the mirror. So in order to do that, there's two bolts, which I've already pulled. Those are 8mm, I believe. And I don't know what else needs to be done here, so I'll kind of pry around and see if I can find the next catch piece or bolt for that. So the mirror piece comes off. You just grab it on the side. This piece slides up and down, but if you just grab it on the side and peel off to one side, and the same with that next piece. Just kind of clips on. And you should be able to pull it right off. Managed to find some of the clips that start holding this eyesight console down. You can see two at the back here. There's more than likely one here and one here, just from looking at pictures from older models, and probably some up in the front there too. So there are two bolts underneath the sunglass cover, and then four clips, two up front, two in the back. So I've got a hardwire kit. It's the constant power, ignition, and ground, so that way it can detect if the car gets bumped while it's parked and off, and also the ignition signal. So I'm going to run that up along the A-pillar here. I pulled off the molding all the way around the door here, just to give me access. And I'll run basically into some tabs here, and there's actually a series of empty slots here, and I believe this bottom one on the is unused, and it's ignition power. And then got another one that's empty right here, which is constant power. So I'll tap into those and then run that over to the left here. There's a little access hole somewhere in here. and then just run the wire up and go on the other side of the airbag and run up through the A-pillar and over. And just to make life easier on myself, I'm going to go ahead and take down this A-pillar molding. So if you start at the top, you can just pull out basically to the inside of the car that way. So there's a little rubber piece that kind of keeps it attached here at the top, probably if the airbag goes off. But there should be another retainer clip further down, and we'll just pop that off, and then we should have a lot more access. One of the other things that might help here, since I'm running the wire down along the trim, and the molding should hold it in there, but pulling this piece, I think when I did my wife's last Outback, I popped this piece and it gave me a little bit more access. So I just have a pry tool and I just poked in from the top there and pried, and it popped open. So you want to start through your fuse panel area and go out cabling through the hole and then on up, so you don't have to pull the wire back out, reroute it again. Just underneath the headliner up front, just take a pry tool up to the front and pry it up and tuck the wire there. And now it just comes down there. And I'm going to basically let the excess wire sit in here, and I'll run it down to the mirror and then into the dash cam. For the electrical, I've got these add a circuit, or I don't know what they're called, but they came with a kit that I had from something else, but you can buy them separately. You just buy them in the appropriate size for your fuses. And for the ground, I actually used this little screw right here that is hidden underneath this trim panel. And it actually, I kind of went underneath the plastic here and held it up against the body there. So it should have good ground against the chassis. And again, I think I mentioned once already that for my circuits, this bottom one here is empty, but it's switched with ignition. And then the third from the top on this right side, which maybe you can't see here, but it is empty also, and that is constant power. So that's where I will end up running my connections. And I did confirm with the multimeter that using that ground and connecting to each of those, I was getting voltage. For the rear, we start by pulling up this weather stripping just enough to get a pry tool in there. See, once you get the pry tool in, that pops down a little bit, and then you can slowly peel it all the way across. And you should have access then to this conduit. And then for better access into the conduit from the rear, you can actually just pull this conduit up just a little bit, and then you should be able to fish the wire for this rear camera right through these holes, and you should be able to come up to the back window area and be able to pull this off. So I started first by fishing the camera side connector up through this bottom connector, through the conduit area. I'll fish it up through this conduit and then through there. So I had some trouble getting to the wire down here, so I have a fish tape that I ran through here. You could just take this piece off and that would probably make it a whole lot easier on you, but I ran that fish tape down through a hole. It's right there, and you can see it, you know, sticking out right there. I'm just going to connect the end of this to that fish tape, pull it back up. Once I finished running the wire up through here, I was able to run it over here to the camera, kind of a central location. I just tried to center it in with the light and tried to kind of avoid some of these defrost lines. And I won't really be able to tell if I managed to do that right until I hook it up to the camera. And so I've still got coil here that I need to run up to the front. That's the next task. Before we close up the overhead console up front, we want to finish running our cable for the back camera. And so I've got it in here. I've put a couple extra loops just up in here, just in case I need some excess out the back. And then started to run, just tucking it along this corner, up along the trim here. And you can see where I'm at right now. I'm gonna run here. I'm going to tuck underneath here with the weather stripping removed. I'll come all the way along here, down, over, and then along the front of the driver's side door, up to the front and across, same way I did with the other cable. Part of my plan was to run up through here. I don't know if you can see it, but that right there is airbag. Okay, so with the electrical installed and the camera installed, we'll try the ignition. I'll let that boot up. And it looks like I need the format card. I can see the back camera. I'm not getting anything out of the front camera, but that might be because I forgot to take the plastic off the front. So I'll do that. I'll probably just take the camera down for that, peel that off, and hopefully everything's working once I get that back on, and I'll button up the last bits of trim and do a walk around. Okay, once I peeled off the plastic off the lens, much better. Got front, we've got back, we've got both picture in picture. Right behind that bobber, we have the front camera and the pan around the back camera.